Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I figured I'd make us extra video tonight on the Lakers because we look so damn bad that I think we're reaching a space where it's time to start having different types of discussions. Um, the team is terrible right now, man. And it's not just tonight's game. It's been about 2 weeks of really bad play that ultimately is getting to a point where it's like, alright, man, this is getting a little alarming. I understand being in shooting slumps. I understand guys having chemistry concerns. I understand injuries costing, chemistry, causing problems out there with our rotations and missing players, providing different, as I like to call, ingredients that need to be out there in order for us to function properly. I think all these things come together to kind of create a problem that maybe what this is or what have you, but the problem that I'm sensing here is that the LA Lakers just don't have any fight in them, and maybe they need to block out all the noise. I do think that the Stars maybe should take a game off. I think the Lakers should indeed call up Quincy Olivari and play the young guys a lot more, at least for a couple of days. I really think that I would consider giving some guys some games off. I would. And I know we probably can't afford to lose too many games, obviously, in the Western Conference, but you also can't afford to not see the bigger picture, which is that this team is checking out. That is worn out its welcome with the people in rotation. You got the same people in rotation who've suffered the same stuff over the last couple of years, and you just need something different there that you don't have in place right now. And I think the Lakers are a team that has some players that we could use to infuse some changes down there. And if it doesn't yield us positive results, at least you've given rest to the guys who need to rest, need to regroup, and need to get out there in order to compete. Because right now you're losing this way. For me, I think giving experience to young guys in a situation like this can do probably more good than bad, even if you lose those games. The rest, the recuperation, the looking in the mirror and trying to figure out who you want to be going forward, individually, collectively, the energy that can come from that, the understanding that these guys are going to get better as they get opportunities. Their trade value raises potentially if they get opportunities. Guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino, Max Lewis, Quincy Olivari, Traore. Now I'm glad we're working him into the equation. He looked better tonight than he did last time. I just think that these are players that were not a part of the problem last year that probably should be utilized more right now while we have guys who are just mentally and physically exhausted. Lean into your player development. Lean into giving guys opportunities, even if they don't fare well. You still get more good out of it and continue in pushing these guys who are absolutely checked out toward more and more lows and failures that they have ultimately a small threshold to hold on to any damn way in regards to their patience. I was looking at this, something one of my favorite commenters, Anthony Newman, was saying. He was saying he thinks the guys are protesting. Maybe they're upset with the organization for not making trades. I mean, transparency with the GM and the players is a difficult thing to manage, because sometimes if you let players know what's going on, it can affect a lot. Guys go into their respective corners with their representation and say, hey, so-and-so could be traded, I could be traded. It's a lot of different things that can affect leverage, and you don't want to, it's rough. I remember when Masai Ujiri was having issues with being considered a liar because he told DeMar DeRozan he wasn't going to be traded and turned around and traded him. And, it's not a truth-based position. It's a leverage position, which means you got to be a good liar, and you got to know when to withhold truths, and you got to know when to front, so that people who don't need to know certain things don't have that for which would ultimately hurt your leverage in the long run. And it's hard to explain that to people. It's hard to understand that. But at the end of the day, I think that in this situation, you would want transparency to help players understand what's possible and what's not. That's essentially what I'm saying. And it may not be in Rob's best interest to tell players, hey, this is why moves can't be made. I don't think the transparency is something that is provided. So if players believe that trades can be made and are not being made because people are sitting on their hands, sort of like a lot of fans believe, it's because that transparency and that bridge isn't provided to help people understand what's necessary in order to get the job done as a GM. I try to help people understand what I see there, which is if you say too much, it can be used against you, just like in the court of law. You try to represent yourself without a lawyer, you're going to slip up and say the wrong thing. It opens up the door for a bunch of questioning that ultimately can back you into looking like you're guilty. I don't think it's much different when it comes to GMing as it pertains to, there's a lot of different scenarios that most people won't be able to see that can affect things. People talk, player thinks he's getting traded. Now he goes back to his representation, says that to the representation. Now they use that understanding to affect other negotiations elsewhere. They take that information and go to another team and say, hey, look, this guy could be on the move. And such is so many different things that are unexplainable, really, but they all web together to ultimately affect the ability to get a good deal on certain things, to have price tags that are favorable for your organization. A lot of things fall apart when the wrong information hits the wrong ears, so you don't want to just tell somebody, even though it would help your situation in front of you to be transparent. It really does hurt other aspects of the game. It can really hurt you in the long run. So, because I think I understand that a bit better than the most, I always just try to preach to people that maybe it's not possible to make trades. Maybe it's not possible to be transparent. And maybe there needs to be some way that players become aware of how that works, so that they're not holding on to lofty expectations that cannot be met. And so that's really what I think could be possible there. When players think trades should be made and they think organizations, as I said, sitting on their hands, it just doesn't often equate to what they think it does. And I think a guy like Rob Pelinka, in doing nothing, has shown all of us that there was probably nothing that we would approve of available to be done. Not necessarily that he's sitting on his hands. Laker fans who are struggling with these losses and with the team having chemistry issues, at some point in time, a fan is going to not care that they're paying too much in order to get something done. And that is, I think, what ends up providing a pressure for teams to make trades that are not favorable for the organization. And that's kind of where I think we're entering at this point. People have been calling for the Lakers to make trades, but now the evidence of the team suffering horrible losses consecutively will make it so that pressure becomes much more intense. And I just think, when I look at the Vando injury update and the statement about how, without Vando present, the Laker organization does not know what trades necessarily should be made, what changes should be made, and the criticism that comes with that statement and how people are interpreting that statement, I think it's important that the Lakers understand the thin line between being transparent with fans and people who are criticizing them, and knowing when you've created more pressure on yourselves for which you can't be transparent about the reality of those demands. You see what I'm saying? What can be done versus what it is people demand. It's probably best to just draw a hard line and not even provide that type of transparency. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to provide hints at transparency, then you're probably still doing what ultimate damage would come from being fully transparent in regards to how difficult it is to make trades and what your how your hands may be tied in the market and how sensitive it is to maintain the price that you want and what you're negotiating and what can fluctuate those prices. You know what I mean? It's like fans want trades made, but they will then, after those trades made, assess if the trade was any good. They don't often understand that these are the things that affect how much it's going to cost to make trades. Whether or not you were able to get a good player back or have to give up a first round pick or two. These things are what determines that sensitivity, not just a player playing well or not, but the leverage that one can negotiate with in making demands on one side of the table or the next. And so it's like, is it just unspoken truths that provide a transparency necessary for people to understand that it doesn't pay to provide anybody in regards to holding all those cards? And it's an impossible situation, and somebody needs to be able to explain it to people. And once people have reasonable expectations, then they can start having more reasonable opinions about what a GM is actually capable of doing, what's best for doing, what ultimately they're going to be pleased with afterwards, and how much they should want something done in the presence of difficulties with their squad. Just draw a hard line is what I tell the front office. You can't tell the people the truth about what all you're looking at, so stop trying to provide a cushion for the pressure that comes with them not knowing what they should want and what you're capable of doing. Because if they knew better, they'd do better, and you can't tell them that. So ain't no sense in trying to make excuses to make them calm. They don't have an educated placement in regards to what they should want from you. That's essentially what I'm saying to Rob in the front office. You know, they don't even know what they should want. They don't know how to assess what you're looking at from their perspective and respect what it is that you're faced with when trying to get the best deal for whatever it is you have. But aside from all of that, there are some things you can do, front office and Rob Pelinka and you guys, that can make it so that what you're dealing with is easier on your end, and that is hiding players who are struggling, playing more of the young guys and playing their value up, resting players whether they want to or not, and continuing to study the understanding of how to draw a hard line when discussing certain things about what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done, and being okay with the criticism that come with it. People not understanding what you got going on. And so that's really what I have to say to the front office. It's a very nuanced and complex situation that the Lakers front office is, and every front office all over the league is trying to balance. And trying to get people who don't understand it to approve of what you're doing without actually explaining to them what it is you're looking at, it does you no good. It just makes you look even more foolish in the eyes of those people. And if they matter so much to you, then the only thing that really should matter is that you do your job efficiently, not trying to make them feel better about what you're doing in the meantime. You feel me? The meantime don't matter. Just that they get that trade that they're looking for at the price that would be acceptable for the future of the franchise is ultimately what's going to make them happy. Because People are pissed off right now, but right now it's going to fade. There's going to be another game. We may win. They're going to be back on these teams bandwagon again and all these different things. You can't react to the short term when it comes to the assessment of these players and the assessment of these fans' opinions. You just can't do it. Being sensitive to the fans' opinions, it's a tough thing to balance. But the organization in the front office has to be transparent with one another. And from there, treat the fans with a certain level of, this is what we have, this is what we're doing, we're not making excuses, nor are we providing explanations. This is what it is. See you next game. Like, that's how it has to be. You know, and I hope that I've done a good enough job of explaining why that is. Although this does seem a little weird. The whole conversation is weird. But leverage is weird. That's the point. Trying to balance leverage and the webs that people can't see in regards to different teams communicating with one another and agents communicating with one another and player fluctuation in value and projection of what young players are going to be. All that stuff is so damn sensitive and so damn impossible to explain that it's just not really feasible to give such a complex conversation much context to people who are just trying to watch a basketball game and see their team win. You know, it's just a disconnect of understanding, and it's just you do better just drawing a hard line in regards to your jargon and what you say to people. You know, you don't need to know that the presence of Vanderbilt not being present, if that makes any sense. Him not being there is hard for the team to assess what they have. It's an excuse in real life, even though it's reality just the same. Like, it's not that they're missing Vanderbilt in regards to knowing that if they have him, they got a player who can play defense, so therefore we don't need to look for a defender. No, not necessarily. It's that he's not on the floor. You don't know how to assess his value, and that affects the value of other things next to him on the team. And so because people don't understand that context, it's like, this sounds like a BS statement. No, it's not a BS statement. It's a literal statement. But there's a lot of things within the understanding of the GM's perspective on Vanderbilt that is not in the minds of those who are listening to that statement. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the disconnect comes. It's like, yeah, it sounds like he's making an excuse, but in his game and what it is that he's doing, GM rather, in Rob's seat, the concept of Vanderbilt, the player, holds many more meanings than what it is that Vanderbilt, the player, means to the fan when reading that statement. That disconnect cannot necessarily be explained, and so it shouldn't even be said. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the Lakers are screwing up, man. That's exactly where they're screwing up. So, yeah, I just hope I can bridge the gap somehow. If people pay attention to me, they're like, oh, so that's why. Yeah, I think that's why. I believe that's why. It's not like anyone's explaining it to me, but like, when it comes to the game of leverage, you just kind of get it or you don't. You know, when it comes to negotiations and trying to balance sensitive information and keep things in a position from which you have leverage, you either get it or you don't. That's what I understand at this point. And so it brings me back to the same old conversation. Hold on to your picks. And as I reacted to that write-up about Vanderbilt, assume he's not coming back, meaning assume that he's not going to hold much value. Assume that you need to replace what he is. And if he comes back 100% healthy, then you have two of them. If you happen to go about getting that type of player, for which can't hurt your team any damn way. Having two types of players that can do what Vanderbilt does, that really does help your team. And, just do the best you can to make a move that ultimately we won't regret, because Lord knows we made too many of them in the past that we have. But sitting on our hands and not doing anything is something that a lot of people are not going to understand. And the more we have these blowouts, they're not going to accept. And if you care about their opinion, then you're probably going to cave. And if you do it the wrong way, then their opinion is going to continue to be harsh. You see what I'm saying? If you make the wrong trade, that opinion shifts to, why did you make that stupid trade? We hate this trade. We want you gone for that. You see what I'm saying? So you only make smart moves. You only make smart moves. That's what you do in the GMC. You only make smart moves. And if you're bending to pressure, then you've already messed up. If you've been into the pressure of other negotiators who want you to overpay, you messed up. If you've been into the pressure of fans who don't understand everything that you got going on but need to hear from you something that makes them feel better, you messed up. It just is what it is. You gotta be iron. You gotta be absolute iron in this job that Rob's in. And you gotta be transparent with one another, as I said already, with Jeanie, so that they understand these things. The round table, they gotta be able to understand these things. You know what I mean? Not the fans necessarily. Because at the end of the day, it's about whether Jeannie's gonna fire you for the pressure of the fans becoming so much on her to do so. And if she's thinking the same thoughts the fans are, then she may, without actually knowing that you were still holding her assets in a way that she would ultimately respect if she understood everything there is to understand. So that's why it's important you speak with her. But, some people, you tell the wrong thing to, you have leaks, and all of a sudden, oops, it's going to cost you 3 picks to get so-and-so done. You can't get this done. Oh, nope. Now people are poaching your player. Somebody that you think you got a hold of, now they're secretly trying to go behind the scenes, trying to find a way to weasel him into wanting out of you. There's so many different things that can go wrong if you say the wrong things. It just is what it is. And so you don't try to make people who don't understand approve of a game that they don't even know is being played. You know what I mean? The only information the Lakers should be giving out in regards to injuries is, these are our expectations, this is our timeline. Any other qualifiers is too much. And that's what I have to say in regards to that Vando thing, or any other player for that matter. Any other qualifiers, I appreciate your transparency as a fan, but because I think I understand what you got going on, I know you're not helping yourself when you do that. So yeah, that took me somewhere else. But as far as the team is concerned, man, they need newness. They need newness, man. And that's why I think the Quincy Olivari piece, if we would have played Quincy Olivari all this time, for all I know, his personality and his energy would have been just enough, man. But because people were doing things this way and that way, you really ruined the chemistry. The choice to give Bronny James a roster spot in a 4-year deal compounded the already exhausted mental capacity of this unit, and it put more pressure on people to accept things that don't seem right to them. It put more pressure on people against the understanding that they don't have the right to say certain things because of the politics in place. It's like a pressure cooker pushing up against their brain. They want to say, yo, this is some bull crap, and can't. And that's what ultimately exhausts people in this organization, in my humble opinion. Can't say nothing about Bron. Can't say this, can't say that. Got to hold accountability for self, but not someone else. It's not just losing. It's not just being on a team where the coach doesn't know what he's doing. The coach was distracted by the presence of that cloud. Just like Frank Vogel was exhausted from the pressure of that cloud. Just like JJ Redick is now becoming exhausted with the pressure of that cloud. that place for which you can't be real because there's so many different sensitivity politics said, that can hurt certain situations. The Lakers have too many politics and not enough transparency, and it's putting a real strain on their employees, and they need to understand that. This whole doing things for LeBron, doing things for Clutch is too political. It's too much. It's too much. People can't even hold each other accountable, and if they do, they have to check and make sure it aligns up with the politics before they say the wrong thing, and ultimately it's not for everybody, man. The Lakers got to understand that. I know they're making big business happen back there, and it's a lot of moving parts, and it's a lot of things that have to do with whatever, however, but at the end of the day, this is a basketball team, man. These are not a bunch of politicians. Politicians sign up for this stuff, they train for this stuff, and a lot of them are much older. They deal with stress differently. They understand webs and different things. These guys are kids. These are kids in a lot of cases. They're young adults. They don't understand why it's okay to get on so-and-so, but not okay to get on Bron about something. They don't understand why nepotism is accepted in your circumstance. They don't understand why a guy like Quincy Olivari can't get called up, but Bronny James can get a 4-year deal. It's like that's a presence of something that they can't be. They can't be free to speak about. They can't be free to just say, yo, Bron, get back on D. Gotta be careful. That's what's exhausting your team. That's what exhausted everybody before it. That's what flustered the mind of your coaches. I'm telling you what went wrong. I don't know that Darvin Ham is so lost in the sauce if he's coaching the Suns or the Kings. Because the presence of this political cloud where saying what the truth is a problem isn't a problem in those places. So he's free to hold people accountable, free to run longer practices, free to vent freely to everybody in the moment and get all that frustration out. You start holding all that in, it can distract you. Holding all that in, it can exhaust you. It can make you check out. And I am 100% certain that is what has happened to every coach that's been here since Bron's been here, man. To every player that's been here since Bron's been here. They just can't. The Clutch cloud makes people you gotta clam up into your skull and keep all your stuff to yourself. A guy like JJ Redick is transparent. He tells the truth. He's blatant. He's open. And now he gets here and he has to watch every word. He has to think about every word 3 times before he even says it. He has to, be optimistic when he don't feel that way. I can guarantee you JJ Redick just wants to cuss and say, these people quitting on me, man. And I bet if he was in an environment for which he could say that without it being a problem, he'd probably be more clear in regards to what he's doing next. It's too much to think about, Lakers. Trying to deal with all your politics. It's too much to think about. It's too much to suppress. Real life emotions and feelings that gotta come out so that people can do their jobs and move on to the next thought. So when you have a world where everybody has to hold it in, eventually they're going to overload. And I hope I described enough of what it is I see there so that people who listen to me in that organization will really understand what they need to do to fix their organization. You got to get that cloud out. Guys got to be able to vent freely, frustration at the highest of to get it all out and then move on so that they can be clear on what their next move should be. Accountability promotes healing, promotes clarity. And if you forego some of those things, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have people, suppressing, and ultimate stress makes people crack. And that is what you're giving birth to with all of these clouds that we're talking about here. So that's what I would tell Jeanie. You got a suppressing environment that doesn't allow people to get some very necessary frustrations and truths into the atmosphere. because of the presence of this political structure, for which is failing them anyway because they're not winning while having it in place. And some of these guys really care about winning, and this is killing the fun in it all. So that's what I think is going on there, man. The evolution of this organization is to be able to both have what they want in place with all of this and still have an environment for which people can tell the truth, hold everybody accountable no matter what. And those who are above reproach need to understand that this is what you give birth to when you don't allow people to tell the truth about you, to you, and to everybody else around you. You start suppressing minds, and it makes people crack, and they lose focus, and they don't perform. So that's what I'm here to tell people, man. The truth will set you free. That's not just cliche, it's literal. And I hope people are starting to understand that. So that's pretty much my point of view, man. I know I was all over the place. I'm a little tired right now, so it may not have made all the sense in the world, but as I try to do, I try to often give clarity to and provide a bridge to certain things that just do not find themselves being said. And when it comes to this leverage thing, it is that. It's best not said, and it's also best understood. And there's no way for that bridge to be found without someone just explaining it to people who's not a part of it, so it can't hurt me that I do. So yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know, man. This team is struggling right now. The organization's struggling right now. And I just see people trying their very best to say the right things. And that suppression is stressful for them, I'm sure. BDL 44, I thank you all for watching. I'm out.